How's it going, everyone? I'm Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel, where you'll find some of the most fair and honest game reviews out here. And finally, I get to talk about this game because I've been dying to do so for quite some time. We're returning to the Doom series, probably the most legendary FPS franchise, alongside Wolfenstein, of all time. And this is personal for me because if you guys don't remember, I actually helped do the guide for IGN about Doom 2016. So finally, after all this time, I get to sit down and talk to all of you about Doom Eternal, the sequel to that game. If you want to talk about pure primal action that is both fun and exciting, you can never go wrong with the game series like Doom. The legacy it has ultimately speaks for itself. Doom Eternal is the sequel to the 2016 reboot of the franchise, which brought pure FPS action to the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Although I agree that Doom is always best played on a well-equipped PC, things have translated very well to console gaming for the series. Unlike its predecessor, however, Doom Eternal goes ahead and implements a few changes to the classic Doom formula. But before I get into specifics, what's going on with the story here? The plot of Doom Eternal takes place sometime after the events of the previous game, with the Earth becoming invaded by demons and losing most of the human population in the process. A company known as the UAC has gained total control of the planet and imposes the will of demonic forces on what remains of the human race. The aptly named Doom Guy arrives on Earth with a massive fortress in space, which he gained after being teleported away at the end of the previous Doom game. Things get really crazy as Doom Guy battles the demons and pursues a group of Hell Priests who are hell-bent on sacrificing the remaining human survivors for their own purposes. The entire campaign of Doom Eternal is a non-stop bullet train of explosions as Doom Guy rips and tears his way through legions of enemies. If you wanted even more craziness that you got in the first Doom game, then you're really gonna love seeing things turned up beyond 11 for the sequel. Now, the story of this game, honestly, is more fleshed out than the previous Doom game, and if anything, it's probably the most fleshed out entry of the entire franchise. Personally, for me, I think that's pretty cool. Even though I'm not deep into the lore of Doom, I could really kind of give it to anybody that's like into this type of stuff. And especially if you've been with the Doom franchise for all these years, this is the most lore, the most story, and the most fleshed out narrative that you're ever going to get from any of these games. And real talk, it's just so easy to like Doom Guy. For most of the game, he's a silent protagonist, even though he does talk in a few instances here and there, but he's pretty much straightforward. You get everything that you need to get about Doom Guy within the first like couple seconds when you first see him in the game. It was like that with Doom 2016, and it's definitely like that with Doom Eternal. One of the other things too I should mention is that even though there is a huge narrative here, you don't necessarily need to engage with it. That's the best part about it. It's not going to take away anything from any part of the experience if you just don't care about the story and you just want to rip and tear through everything that's in your path. I like that, and a lot of other people will definitely like that as well. And of course, let's talk about these visuals because my god, they look fantastic on current gen hardware with PS4, Xbox One, and also PS5 and Xbox Series X, but I can only imagine how good this game looks on a well-equipped PC. Doom was always made to be played on an awesome PC, and this is no exception. Just the backgrounds look fantastic, the different stages that you're running around, the little secrets and hidden areas you could find look awesome, the monsters look amazing, they look super grotesque but like super detailed as well. There's little nuances you could catch about them as you're exploring around the different areas. But even on top of that, all the guns, Doom Guy himself, all the other characters you run into, everything about this game visually and just presentation wise looks freaking awesome, and I expect nothing less from the Doom franchise. With all of that out of the way, let's get into the gameplay proper because there is a lot to unpack with Doom Eternal, and if anything, it's pretty much what you want and then some. Without question, it feels very good to play Doom Eternal. The controls are very similar to the previous game, and it's because the controls in that game just felt so right. Moving around in Doom Eternal's large environments is fast and smooth, giving you a lot of freedom to traverse large areas while still giving off that classic 90s FPS speed and control. Speaking of which, the biggest change in Doom Eternal is how large scale the environments are during the campaign. You're still playing through stages like before, but Doom Guy has much more room to explore as you fight off hordes of demons along the way. And man, let me tell you, you're going to be killing a lot of demons here. These nasties come at you fierce in groups, but you're more than well equipped to deal with all of them. Your guns are devastating and pack a lot of firepower, and can be upgraded as you find attachments to boost up your arsenal. It's so damn satisfying to gun down tons of enemies that are trying to get at you. But then you throw in how you could rip and tear enemies with the glory kills from the previous game in order to gain ammo and health. Yeah, things get pretty sweet here. Some people might say that this gets very repetitive very quickly, and I could agree with that to a point. But when things feel so good over and over again, how can anyone really complain here?
Is advised.
Now, if there's one thing I can nitpick about Doom Eternal, it would have to be the harsh difficulty spikes towards the middle and the late game. While you feel like a total badass at the start, the campaign eventually sneaks up on you with some pretty cheap enemies. These fools require a lot more finesse to bring down, rather than going in guns blazing. The most annoying of these demons are the Marauders. These guys feel way too overpowered. They are fast, hit you incredibly hard, and can block most of your attacks with their shield. On top of this, they can also summon a Hellhound to attack you on the ground while you're trying hard to focus on them. It gets absolutely nuts every time you fight these things. There's a method to bringing them down pretty quickly, but I still feel that they're made to be annoying more than anything else. Everything about them just feels like it comes out of nowhere, with the sole purpose to make you stop everything that you're doing for a short while. When you have your attention split in 4 directions during a firefight, these guys could be a major problem. Something that's a big standout to me in Doom Eternal is just how many opportunities and options you have to upgrade not only your arsenal but your Predator suit, and just the accessibility to all the different stuff you have, the different tools of your trade when it comes to fighting the demons. This makes Doom Guy super versatile, probably the most versatile he's ever been in any of the Doom games. And if anything, that actually works out really well for the momentum of the game as you're going through each stage, especially with the increased level of challenge towards the middle and the end. There's a lot of stuff you can do to face all these different demons, between finding new weapons, between finding new upgrades for said weapons, and just opening up different options for attachments and other types of abilities, as well as also your mobility. If anything, this is the most mobile I've ever seen Doom Guy in any Doom game. Between dashing in the air, climbing up different structures, there's a lot of stuff that's happening here, and it's great because it compensates for not only how large the different stages are and the different environments that you explore, but also the different types of enemies that you're fighting. There's some crazy boss fights and crazy large enemies that you have to face in Doom Eternal, and all the different abilities are going to be a huge asset to you in order to bring them down. But as much as I praise the single player campaign in Doom Eternal, which definitely deserves a lot of praise, there's a whole bunch of other stuff related to the game that we should cover, particularly the extra content and the multiplayer. And if I'm being totally honest with all of you guys, man, there's some stuff to unpack with this, for real. The Doom series is no stranger to having secrets and extra goodies, and Doom Eternal follows up with that tradition. There's a lot of bonus items and secrets to discover in the campaign, all of which will have longtime Doom fans feeling giddy. I really enjoy seeing how much reverence Doom puts on display for its legacy, including classic skins and music from earlier games, little nods and winks to the audience, and other great stuff you could find within the levels. The game simply knows its fans and does a ton to reward them for sticking around with the series all these years.
The exit portal should take you directly to Mars surface facility.
Now on the flip side of this, I have one very major problem with Doom Eternal, and that's with the multiplayer. In my opinion, the multiplayer mode of Doom Eternal is trash, absolute garbage, and really is the worst part of the game. I talked about this on social media a few times, but my problem is how unbalanced the multiplayer mode really is. My question here is, why don't we have the traditional team deathmatch or other classic multiplayer modes within this game? Instead, we're forced to play this battle mode, which puts a team of 2 players against 1. In other words, it's basically 2 demons versus Doom Guy, with some extra CPUs that spawn as well. The idea of this should work in theory, but everything falls apart very quickly. The matches are just so heavily in favor of the demon team, putting the Doom Guy player at a huge disadvantage. The demons can summon extra monsters, respawn their teammate if they get killed, run away from danger in crazy ways. It gets absolutely ridiculous. But the demons can also gain perks in between rounds, making their strategies even more stronger. The Doom Guy player can gain some perks as well, but they clearly have the short end of the stick here. I don't like this at all, and I really wish we got some of the older multiplayer modes from the previous game. It's just so one-sided, and I can't begrudge anyone who feels like this is just not fun to play. Honestly, this feels like a radically different experience from the rest of the game, so I feel like you could totally ignore the multiplayer modes of Doom Eternal and miss out on almost nothing that is relevant to the rest of the package here.
Slayer route blocked. Slayer route blocked. Demon healed. Slayer health critical. Slayer killed. Round 1.
I'm not even gonna front. The multiplayer mode in this game is just absolute trash, man. I keep saying that, but it is so true. And it's sad because I look at this and it really can't have any bearing on my review because everything else about this game is awesome. But it's just this one part of it that's just kind of like a big black spot on it that you just can't ignore. And it's a shame because I love the multiplayer in Doom 2016 as much as that was flawed. But that at least was still traditional team deathmatch. Those were multiplayer modes that were very much in line with the rest of the Doom franchise. And for whatever reason, they decided to change it here, and I just don't think that was the right decision. I think that was a terrible move on their part. I wish maybe they had like a DLC that included some of those traditional multiplayer modes where everybody could be Doom Guy and play team deathmatch or an objective-based game, but for whatever reason, they just never did that, and I think that was just a terrible move. One other thing I should mention is the Ancient Gods DLC. There's 2 packs of DLC that you could get for Doom Eternal. Personally, for me, I didn't play them for this review. I did watch some footage online of them, and the thing that I come to, at least the conclusion I came to when I was playing this game, is that you don't necessarily need the Ancient Gods DLC. It's more of the single-player content. If you enjoyed that, then I highly suggest you check that out because it's just more of the same. It fleshes out even more story after the events of this game coming to a conclusion, and that's totally fine. But with the way that they're priced right now that you could get, I think it's like $20 per pack, or at least for a season pass, do you necessarily need to play those in order to really just, again, enjoy Doom Eternal, especially the base game? Personally, I don't think so. I think that if you skip out those Ancient Gods DLC stuff, you'll be totally fine. It's there if you want it, but you don't necessarily need it to enjoy this game. So can I sit here and recommend that you play Doom Eternal? Even with all of my criticisms mentioned, I still think this is a great FPS game that you should definitely check out. I won't back down in saying that the multiplayer mode is absolute trash, but if you ignore that mode and focus on the single player campaign instead, you're going to enjoy the heck out of this game. It looks great, sounds great, and feels fantastic to play. As the next mainline entry of the Doom series, it definitely lives up to the legacy of its predecessors in moving the series forward into next gen. Where things might go from here is anyone's guess, but after this, I'm definitely excited to see what comes afterwards.
And you will be their savior. Your strength will be their shield, and your will their sword. You remain unbroken. For your fight is eternal.
And there you go, everyone. Those are my overall thoughts about Doom Eternal. I should mention that I did play the PS4 version of this game on a PlayStation 5, but you could pick this game up on PS4, you could get it on PC, you could get it on Xbox Series X or Xbox One. You could play Doom Eternal on a whole bunch of different places, even now Nintendo Switch, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. But one of the cool things about this, and about the franchise in general, this is still Doom. Like, Doom has maintained its identity for the better part of like 20 plus years, which is an amazing feat for any game franchise. I mean, this is one of the cornerstones of the FPS genre. It actually helped build, alongside Wolfenstein, the entire FPS genre as we know it today. We just simply wouldn't have what we have right now without Doom, and that's pretty freaking awesome. I'm glad the legacy is still in good hands, and there's some good things coming from Doom in general. Even though I criticize it, and I know other people have criticized it over the years, various different games, we still love Doom, man. We still could definitely be proud when we say about anybody's computer system or any piece of technology, can it run Doom? it definitely could still run Doom right now. Let me put it that way. Like, the series is still going strong, and I love it for it. But of course, with every game that I review on this channel, that's just my opinion about Doom Eternal. Let me know your own thoughts and opinions about Doom Eternal down in the comments section below. Tell me, are you a big fan of Doom? Have you stuck with the franchise since the beginning? What are some of your favorite Doom games or other games that might be inspired by Doom that you've played multiple times throughout the years? Are there any Quake fans out there? Because again, I'm a big Quake fan. Maybe one day if I get a souped up PC, I could probably play some Quake or at least review a Quake game. That actually would be kind of cool. But since we're talking about Doom, talk to me about all that Doom stuff down below in the comments section. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. I really appreciate it a ton. I'll have more videos for you to enjoy here on the side that I know you'll love. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon too. Don't forget to visit my Patreon linked below for early access to new videos every week, and join the Discord server too. It's linked in the description box below. You'll definitely love being a part of it. Thanks again, peace out, and stay epic, everybody.